The management of Dangote Refinery and Petrochemical Group recently accused international oil companies in Nigeria of doing everything to frustrate the survival of its refinery. Vice President Oil and Gas at Dangote Industries Limited said the IOCs are deliberately and willfully frustrating the refinery's efforts to buy local crude by jacking up a high premium price above the market price, thereby forcing it to import crude from countries as far as the United States with its attendant high cost. Well, how credible are those claims, or is there a real shortage of crude accessible to local refiners? Well, Isreal IA is partner, commercial and energy law practice, who joins us now for a quick conversation. Good to see you on Newsday. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So what are your thoughts, on this outcry by Dangote? Is this something that we really should be worried about? Is it credible?
Okay, that's a very broad take, effectively. And then I have heard or read that same statement in the media about the non-availability or shortage of crude to feed the Dangote refinery project and potentially other refinery projects. But again, I mean, it's indicative, unfortunately, of the lack of strategic planning and the severe policy gap in terms of how we develop projects in this country. I remember when we wanted to boost our generating capacity, and we bought turbines. We didn't even think through how we were going to get them to the locations where they would be installed. Some turbines ended up at locations where they couldn't cross the bridge. And even when they were installed, to date, there are a few of those turbines that have not worked because we were not able to supply them gas. That sort of end-to-end planning is what is lacking here. And again, which is why some of us were very disappointed that the PIA missed the opportunity to put in place an entity that would be focused on generating energy policies and helping that sort of thinking from end to end. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Dangote, as much as it is of strategic national importance, is not a national asset. It's a private enterprise located within a tax-free zone. So it will have to source its own crude. Again, those crudes are sold in advance. You have to understand that the international oil companies are structured around what is called unincorporated joint ventures. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian entities are not trading entities, they're operating entities. What it means is that they cash call what they need, they operate, and then they transmit to their trading entities to trade. So the cash is essentially not even generated from here. And again, they're forward sold, the futures they're sold as futures. And so the entire trading framework is different. My expectation is that at the time when an entity or an asset of such a strategic national importance, even though not a national asset, was being conceptualized, that somebody thought about how to feed it and to get up and going in order for us to be able to take the benefits. I can go on, but I'll stop here so you can ask your questions.
All right. Some are saying that the 2024 budget might be implemented partially due to this low production of crude oil. Is this situation come about as a result of sabotage? Is what is going on with the PIA? Why isn't the PIA able to resolve some of these issues? And how does it affect Nigerians in the short run?
I'm not sure it has that much to do with the PIA. I mean, again, it's that tendency to be quite simplistic in how we see things and how we think about things. I remember I've emphasized very strongly the role of policy in terms of the sort of eventual outcomes that we get. I mean, the PIA was a good development, but the PIA is simply is the legislative basis for the conduct of petroleum operations in Nigeria broadly. Regulations are made pursuant to those, and hopefully it creates what you call a stable statutory and regulatory environment to be able to draw investments in. But you know how you fill the gap and sort of direct things generally would be policy. Again, I mean, so even if we produced, for example, assuming the PIA is able to incentivize production and we produce at what appears to be our current installed capacity, which is around 2 million barrels a day. I'm not sure we've even hit 2 million barrels a day yet. The time this government came in, it was abysmally low. I think it's gotten it up to about 1.7 million barrels a day. Even if we got to those levels, it generates foreign exchange, which is critical to the Nigerian economy at the moment. What the NUPRC, which is the upstream regulator, has said, and all sort of policy contributors, is that the ultimate objective is to nudge this up to 2.5 million barrels a day, to 3 million barrels a day, to potentially 4 million barrels a day. And that's really where you start to see a change. So you can continue to focus, 2 to 2.5 million barrels a day to generating forex, which is critical to how our economy is structured presently, and then redirect about 1 to 1.5 million barrels a day to domestic utilization. We're not even talking about gas yet. We're just talking about crude, So those are the numbers we're looking at. Then if you think you can magically satisfy your appetite for forex and feed local refineries from barely 1.7 million barrels a day, then that's magical thinking, right? That's not going to work.
No, thank you so much for that analysis. In the meantime, some critics, believe that this outcry is more of an obvious mischief, half-truth, and maybe outright blackmail. They see this as a propaganda campaign against the operating IOCs in Nigeria, so that Dangote can be given crude oil on its own terms. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's a lot of value judgment there I don't feel qualified to comment on. I believe the IOCs have the apparatus to speak for themselves and to make their own case. But again, if you look at some of the analysis I have shared, and if we're talking facts and numbers, then it starts to become apparent what we need to do and what we need to do, where the gaps are, and how we can start to fix them. But of course, there's a provision in the Petroleum Industry Act that talks about domestic supply of crude, but that competes with another strategic policy issue, which is foreign exchange earning. And as the Nigerian state, I would honestly struggle to see how this government or any government anytime soon will prioritize the allocation of crude to refineries locally over and above trading them and raising the forex we need. Well, how we would arrive there is to lift generally the volumes that we're producing, and that's really where we need to bring all hands on deck. I mean, in that respect, if you think about what the NUPRC is doing with respect to putting some blocks up for sale and expanding basically our production capacity, that's commendable. But unfortunately, upstream projects don't mature in a year or two. Those are long-term things, 5 years, 10 years, before you start to see the gains. But better late than never. In the short term, honestly, I would say at the very minimum, let's try and nudge things up to about 2 million barrels a day, 2.2 million barrels a day, and see perhaps if we can force some of the incremental volumes through the local refining capacity. That's probably what I would say about that.
And if things persist this way, how does it affect the lives of ordinary Nigerians in the short and the long term?
Well, exactly. How it potentially affects the life of Nigerians in the short term is that if we don't get our policy ducks in row and we're not focusing on the major things, then we'll continue to have shortages either of forex and of petroleum products, and ultimately the common man and or the rest of us suffer for it.
Now, the Vice President of Dangote, also talked about the issue of licenses being given in large quantities, import licenses being given in large quantities to traders who are buying extremely high sulfuric diesel from Russia, and dumping it into the Nigerian market. Of course, we know the adverse effect this will have on the health of Nigerians and even on our economy. So how do we curb this? How do we ensure better quality control?
Well, I mean, the regulator that is responsible for managing, so there's actually a designated regulator for this purpose, and that's the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority. That's what it's called. I'm not sure I've seen a lot in terms of how they're stepping up to this, but perhaps if you directed your question to somebody from that agency or that authority, they'd probably be better able to tell you what to do. But again, look, so in terms of quality management, that's a different issue. But implicit within that comment also is even maybe some competition issues. I'm not aware. I mean, the Dangote refinery, as far as I'm aware, is an export facility. So again, it probably would not receive any specific protection in terms of, in my opinion, in terms of its ability to compete with refineries from elsewhere. But again, that's probably something you need to be talking to the NMDPRA. Yes, that's what they're called.
Well, we'll try to catch up with them in a short amount of time. Thank you for your input, Isreal IA, partner in commercial and energy law practice. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.